Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the November 19th meeting of the Sandwich Conservation Commission. My name is Kimberly Walsh. Tonight are
Jeremy Shea,
Bernice Waller,
Tyler Goudreau,
Linda Romano.
and we are going to go ahead and take a vote. I need to be appointed as the interim
Co-chair.
co-chair.
motion to appoint Kimberly Walsh as interim co-chair.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Just a reminder, we are a commission made up of your neighbors, and we are here to uphold the Wetlands Protection Act to the best of our ability. I don't have the script in front of me because I wasn't prepared for this, because we lost our chair and our co-chair in the same evening. So I'm going to do my best to have you all heard and to make sure everything's fair. And I got to appoint Linda Romano as a voting member tonight. Okay?
Second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
That's okay. No problem. Okay, so no further ado, we will get started. So here's this part. Okay, so we're going to start with the first on our agenda. That would be 204, Route 6A.
Do you need an agenda?
What are we doing?
Good. How are you?
Hi there.
For the record, my name is Wayne Tavares from Wet Tech Land Design, Inc. And this is Chris. Good, how are you? And he's building a house at 204 Route 6A. And he's owned the lot for some time. And last year he got a little bit too aggressive and he cleared the back site. And I talked over with Jenna about it, so we're putting it together, this copious plan to put a house, an ADU on the site. We have a lot of knotweed on the site, and we have a nice area to do some mitigation in. So that's what the whole project is all about. The site has been regraded. It's up here in front of you, by the way. There's a wetland, isolated wetland, so I understand this comes under only the sandwich bylaw. So here's the wetland, and here we put a 30-foot radius setback, 50-foot, and 100 feet. So the house, here's the 100-foot line, and here's the house, and through here. Driveway comes up here. It was here, for those of you who have visited the site. So we carved to this area, and we placed an ADU sort of in the middle of the knotweed patch. So Chris had some ideas about how to take care of the knotweed. The house is in the 50 to 100 foot zone. So we have to do some mitigation. We have mitigation planting on this particular plan. It's a steep site and it's a long house, so there was a lot of intense grading to be done. So part of the grading in the backyard intrudes on your 50-foot zone, this little dark spot in through here. We're hoping we allow it. There's no structures in this area. It's only there for grading purposes, and that's it. So we're grading this site. You can see that all the steep lines in through here. We actually moved the house over another 10 feet. So Chris has some special rights in here because of the old house. This is the house that one of you guys kidded me about when we did the walk around over at Dunn Roman, that you like to see the chimney stay. But anyhow, the chimney will go. The old house is also put here on the plan. The proposed septic system is out here in the front near Route 6A and away from the wetland, well over 150 feet. So we have that delineated, we have the wetland delineated. We have this spot in here that we hope for some lenience from you with the mitigation planting that goes on top of this. When Chris did his clearing, the only trees that were removed were locust trees, which are invasive. And the soil that's in here is so typical of the glacial moraine. It's unbelievable. You've got the cat briars growing in here, and you've got a real voracious amount of knotweed that's in this area right here. Chris intends to clean out the knotweed as he does the construction with the house. All the site work goes into the same thing. We put this ADU to fit right in the knotweed patch, as well as clearing this all out, because that's, once it's cleared out, it's gonna be a mitigation area. So that's what we're hoping that you can see. The driveway is here, it's gonna turn around. I placed some cars to show you where things are going. What else can I tell you? His small patio out here, we had a larger patio, and Chris thought better of it to reduce the size of it in order to accommodate this grading. So everything is graded, everything works in through here. Very difficult lot to work on because there's about 14 feet of grade from the street up to the high point. That's it, that's my 5 minutes. Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Maybe two, great. Great, thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to open it up for public comment. No public comment, okay, close for public comment. Staff members, please.
So we did recognize it's under the bylaw only, because it's an isolated vegetated versus a bordering. And that this includes the restoration portion of a buffer zone violation from, I think it was a little while ago now that things were cut back. Then there's been plenty of ongoing correspondence where I know we had some deadlines for restoration, but I know things have been ongoing and being worked on. And it was just that strip towards I think it was the back left of the property that had just been, clear cut right to that, pretty much right down to the ground there where that little pool of water is. We also need architectural plans for the house and the ADU.
Yes,
Those
I
were
have them.
submitted.
I forgot to send them to you.
Okay, we will need those, at least for, any issuance, that's part of your, stamped approved plans of record. And I understand that the demolition was outside of jurisdiction, and then it's the rebuild that's going to put you in jurisdiction. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I don't know if it would be possible, but from a violation standpoint, for me, I would appreciate if the buffer zone could get restored prior to construction of the house. I know the buffer zone is pretty far back, and it, according to your plan, appears to be, out of the way versus having to tromp through your restoration to get to your construction site. I don't know when you're planning on starting to build, if that, if everything gets approved and passed, but if the restoration could be done, sooner rather than later, I think that would work better to satisfy the violation and get that fixed before we build.
When you get finished, I'd just like to add something.
Sure. So I think that's all I had, other than, we really do need the ARC plans, so.
I just thought that the removal of this knotweed, which is in here, would be a good tit for tat. Chris did his job last year, and he put up a fence. It's still there in where these guys should not have touched to do it, but it's done, and he owns it, so he understands it. But the problem, not the problem, it's in the back corner. If you'd like us to, I counted only 3 locusts that would come back. They'll sucker back when you cut them anyhow. So they come back. Not that we want them, but in that area, it makes more sense to concentrate this at the knotweed area removal. So I'm hoping for a trade.
I mean, that can be up to, what the commission wants in those details. I just want to make sure that area is restored. It doesn't get, forgotten about or anything after the whole construction process is done. So, I know locust trees are invasive. I mean, there's still biomass and habitat, but, if those can be replaced with natives, that would be cool too. So.
Okay.
Anyway, that's all I have.
Very good, Jenna, on that one. Wayne, could you go ahead and repeat the trade-off that you were discussing?
Okay. On this plan, this is the area. Chris put up a fence right in this area in the 30-foot zone.
Yep.
And he told the guys to go clear the lot. Well, they ignored the whole fence. So they cleared this area around this wetland and through here. And what I'm saying is this area here that's all hatched on the other side is all knotweed.
Right.
We like to remove that and use that as the mitigation, sort of slipping the mitigation from here to here. These things are growing back. Everything is there. You've got brambles. I mean, this is so typical of the soils of this area, that you've got locust growing back, you've got black raspberry growing back, you've got goldenrod growing back, a lot of herbaceous stuff, and not much shrubbery. So I'm asking that shrubbery, this will come back on its own, be moved to this area, and this become the mitigation planting table that I have on this side. This mitigation is for this little encroachment on the 50-foot zone here. So there's two areas of mitigation. We would prefer to move the mitigation that's not really required. This is only cut down, that's it. No roots removed. So take that mitigation, move it over here. And we've done calculations and so forth for the mitigation to be accurate. You want me to hold that in front of me and?
How many square feet is that, wetland in total, do you know? That little wetland, your isolated
That's a good
wetland?
question. I never did that calculation. That's about 15 feet, 30 feet, 400 square feet because
Less
it
than
narrows
500.
down, yeah, something like that. It goes off into the other lot. It's much bigger on the other lot.
So in terms of what was mown down in that area as part of this this restoration work that we're discussing, do you have a good idea of what was in there and what is likely to come back? I think that one of the things that I would want to do is to make sure that we have like the biomass like restored from what was to what is now. Your point is well made about the roots still being there, so things will likely flush up, the good and the bad. So we need to figure out a way to understand that particular portion, because that's kind of originally what brought you here, is the need to do this restoration. And then the second part that I want to talk through, and I think maybe Tyler will be very helpful on this one, is how you're going to, what your plans are for the knotweed, because it's very difficult to deal with knotweed. And so how are you planning on taking that out? So my concerns would be twofold: making sure we understand what was taken out and then what we should put back in, and then what are you doing to really do that restoration work in that larger mitigation area?
Okay, we've discussed this before. Why we thought that we wouldn't massage the ground where we cut that material, or Chris's guys cut that material. Let it grow back, leave the topography the way it is. But when you get to the knotweed, since there's so much excavation work, site work, there's gonna be a lot of site work here. We may as well take the excavation and excavate 1.5 feet off of that ground and remove the knotweed completely.
Yeah.
Just cut it, instead of trying to slam it 3 times every
But you're
year.
gonna try to remove the root mass, correct?
Remove the root mass.
I honestly think that's the best way that's the first approach. If you can remove its roots, you're better off. You will likely still have something to encounter with it. Like there may be stuff that pops up that you're gonna have to continue to fight back. And do you have a protocol for what you would want to do in that case when it starts kind of popping back up? I don't know what we get into, but sometimes covering it, suppressing it.
Yeah.
There's always equipment on site, though. We'll just dig it.
Yeah, but you gotta outline it. What they're saying is we have to outline it properly, and then if we miss some, what are we going to do with the stuff that we don't get? I think that's what you're saying.
It's just likely that you're gonna have to have some kind of protocol to dealing with it, and you're not gonna be able to continue to excavate it out. There'll be little chips of it, and it will start growing back up. And so I think understanding, and within the regulations, you are allowed to have some kind of treatment for the knotweed. I think it's really a benefit to everyone on the Cape for you to be managing your knotweed. It's a horribly invasive thing, and it ruins a lot of really beautiful, pristine areas on the Cape. So I'm all for getting that out, and I think that your mitigation package is very fair for what you're replacing with that. But I want to make sure that we have some regulations in here that say what you're allowed to do and how you're allowed to manage this knotweed should your root removal not get you everywhere you wanna be.
Just Tyler, have
Comes
any-
back, right?
anything
Yeah.
you'd add?
Yeah, I think Bernice's point is, so the plan is to excavate and then replace with new soil. And then to Jenna's point is, we'd like to see some plantings as quickly as possible. Whether or not that's done before construction, the problem is if you did all this planting and went through the effort, then inevitably what would happen is if some of this knotweed came back, then it would outcompete the natives. So therefore the mitigation is not in 10 to 15 years, it's not feasible anymore. So I think excavating is a great way to start. And if you worked with a professional, they can come in and do maintenance to ensure that over time that knotweed is managed before the plants get established. I also think a seed mix is a great way to get coverage so that when the knotweed's trying to shoot back up, the other thing is it can still be managed with a selective herbicide with those grasses. I think going the approach of excavation first is fine, but I think whatever management protocol you have should be in place, like you said, and then usually we have maintenance and monitoring reports, and if the knotweed isn't managed, then you would have to continue that. So with the part of the mitigation is that if you work with a professional, they're going to say, in this 2 to 3 years, we have a success rate with, if you did the excavation with a selective herbicide, that we can feel comfortable that the mitigation will take its place. The one suggestion that I have is just a small amount of additional mitigation along that silt fence to connect the two, because then you have a vegetated buffer strip, so then there's no way that anyone could get back into that wetland resource area. So if you just went across the fence with even a few foot of additional mitigation, I think now we have one continuous along the 50-foot buffer zone. I think that would be helpful, and then maybe even a seed mix within the area that's inside the. I think that's a great way to get more germination rather than just letting it naturalize by itself. There might be some natives in there that could help compete some of that stuff too.
No, I agree. I think that, the more restoration mitigation, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not significant. I think just a little bit to connect the two. Then you have it going right along that 50-foot buffer. I think you did a great job outlining those areas. I think the connection of the two would go a long way, and just discourage anyone from going in there in the future. And then a seed mix is relatively inexpensive. You can just toss that yourself, and you'd be surprised how much can germinate in one season. So it'd make that wetland buffer a lot better.
Yeah, I agree.
I just want to address the sequencing of this. Of course, there's no water out there to do planting now before the construction, as was mentioned. It's kind of silly. You need some water. You need the infrastructure sort of put in and get the water in there in order to finish the grading. So I would say that let's not put the cart before the horse. I know you want to do it now, but if you do it and it doesn't grow and you don't get any water, you get one of these drought cycles. Falmouth used to do that years ago. To their chagrin, a lot of the plants didn't make it because we had to borrow neighbors' waters. I remember in a couple of cases. We don't have a neighbor right now to be able to provide that kind of water. So we do the infrastructure, all the grading. I think I like that idea of seeding. You seed because then you can mow. And if you can mow knotweed and you can beat knotweed if you keep it mowed.
Don't mow it,
No.
you just will make
No,
more
but
of
I
it.
mean the fringes, the little fringes that we might miss would be into grass. And then we'd have 90%, 95% of the knotweed done because we'd carefully outline it. You can see it as clear as day out there. And just outline it, dig that all out. And then if we miss a couple of roots, I think this sequencing will work. You remove all those roots and they'll be gone 95%.
Yeah, I defer to Jenna on the timing of planting. I agree that typically waiting on planting is better for success, but if we had the seed mix in there, the problem is that you do have a violation. So if we weren't able to, if this was a typical project, I would agree with that. But if the commission says no, we need to resolve the violation before we do that, it might make the most sense to get some of those plants in before you do that. So
I think for the sake of the project, I think we'd be willing to let go of the, having them do the, the violation first and then do the work.
It's up to what everyone here is comfortable with. I just don't want the violation to be last on
That's
the
right.
list to mitigate. I mean, if
Can we-
obviously you're held to your order of conditions, and if things are missed or something, there's additional violations in there. But that's my only concern. But I understand you don't want to put a whole bunch of native plants in there that this fall they're going to get choked out by knotweed before you're able to excavate them. So
Or not get water either.
yeah, I mean.
Can we add special, maybe a special condition to the order of conditions and say we want to make sure that this lasts? Like we want to say next season after that.
Yeah, and there's other conditions like, submitting, so many monitoring reports or, things like that by a qualified professional, not just,
That's right.
in site visits. I can have that as a condition saying every 6 months, a monitoring report submitted to the agent.
Yeah.
If that's what you all would be comfortable with.
I think that makes sense. I do think, Wayne, that you could seed the violation area now. You can see that a lot of seed mixes do very well, and they need that scarification over the winter time to kind of make the seeds germinate. So I do think you could probably go ahead and get some seed down on your violated area to start to reestablish that. And then the buffer could possibly come on a different timeline, like a typical timeline. I think monitoring reports, yes. I would want you to have a seed mix, a blanket of a seed mix underneath all your mitigation planting. And I really think you probably should focus on seeding your mitigation areas first. In the area where you have knotweed, those areas should be graded and seeded initially and then monitored for at least one season for the knotweed prior to planting of your mitigation planting, so that you can watch those. Because if you leave it in there, you're just going to start yourself a rat's nest. So if we could condition that.
Condition for seed mix and mitigation areas that are monitored before plantings.
And monitored for one season before they plant, to make sure that you have full eradication of the knotweed
Okay.
before you plant, before you replant.
Can we get
And
it
then
back
we're
up?
gonna condition a buffer, the mitigation, can create a consistent buffer, connector buffer between your one mitigation area to the other mitigation area of 4 feet wide.
yeah, I think in that one that's closest to the ADU, it may just follow along the fence. So if you just had a 4-foot wide strip, I think that just, again, it defines that 50-foot buffer zone pretty well.
Okay.
So then you'll know in the future if there's anything that's happening. And you could just pull that back even away from the house a bit.
Does that make sense? Yeah. I think we need to have that in the file before we can go ahead and approve, so I think we need to continue this to.
We would for the ARC plans anyway.
Yeah, sounds good.
And just going off of the idea of how much biomass was removed, I mean, it was a fairly shocking sight. People know that site well, and to see all the trees gone was a lot. So I think that's what we want to know, is how many were removed, because we want to see I would like to see trees planted, and it looks like putting that driveway through an already wooded area. Is that right?
No.
Yes.
Driveway? Oh, it's not all to the.
And the driveway goes through the little wooded area down here.
So we get a lot of removal of trees,
Yeah.
and we don't have any trees coming back in. So I just don't know how many trees were removed is the question. And thinking, can we get some trees planted in perhaps around that wetland? I mean, and I don't have an answer for that. So I think it would be nice if you could come back and say, this many trees are removed and here's a plan for
I do
some
know
tree
that.
replacement.
That's the whole thing.
Oh,
Yes, I do. Yeah, I went down there. And like I said, there's a lot of brambles, blackberries,
Yeah.
solidago, herbaceous level. But there were 3 trees in the 50-foot zone. And there was 4 trees in the 150 to 100 foot. So you got 7 trees altogether. They were all locusts.
Yeah. Did you know the age of those trees?
Boy.
I think I have
They were 10-inch.
Yeah, so I mean, probably like 80-ish years old is probably the average of that area,
Yeah.
because it was, a lot of pasture. So I think just thinking, what can we do to replace that biomass, which is, I mean, it's significant, which would help, make up for that damage.
You said several removed?
Rather than disturb that area and seed that particular area, why don't we plant trees in that area?
I think you could
should
do
do
both.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the issue is if you're saying let it go, we got to seed it and we got to get those trees in there. Otherwise, the briars are going to pull down those trees.
Okay.
So there needs to be both so that the trees can stay.
1,000%.
So this is the area just outside, 30 feet from the wetland.
Yeah, so I think in that area that was disturbed around the wetland, looking at the seed mix and then some
Birds
tree
love them,
mix.
birds love the
Yeah.
trees.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can also do smaller sizes, like 3 to 10 gallon. So nothing big.
Yeah.
We don't want to disturb the area.
Okay,
So
okay.
exactly.
it's,
But are we still talking before we have water on site?
Well, the
it sounds like
trees
we're going to
would not be-
continue this. So I would say that the plan, I mean, just a hatch pattern over the area inside the fence, and then just call out the quantity, just like you did.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
quantity of trees in there and the species, and then just the continuation. But it sounds like what we're recommending is instead of the shrub plantings, at least the seedings and probably some erosion controls down in that footprint of the mitigation to kind of say, hey, we're starting the process before the construction, and then inevitably if construction happens and it falls on the seeds rather than shrubs, it's a lot easier to plant the shrubs and then just top dress with some seed later. But I think that'll stabilize the area. It'll start the competition with the knotweed that's reemerging if we can get a good seeding in there.
We are talking about two different areas of the area. Around the wetland has no knotweed. I don't want to get the two sort of intermixed. So,
We're not intermixing them.
so in my mind, we sort of are. We're carrying one to the other.
We're doing a similar thing in both areas.
Yeah.
Because they are connected. So there's the knotweed area, seed mix, and right next to it, same thing around that wetland seed mix. So it is, we want to connect that.
Okay, you know where the fence is? It's in that black fence.
So does that make sense? So can you come back to us with a new plan? Approve those
Can we
things?
close the hearing based on?
We don't have the architecturals anyway, so we might as well get a new plan from you, so we have it on record.
We need a motion to continue.
So continue to a new plan that shows this
Yes,
and the architecturals.
yes, all of it together, right? So we can't approve it until we've got everything in front of us, right? Okay.
Okay.
So motion to continue, what's the
We've got
date?
December 3rd.
Yeah, can you do December 3rd, the next meeting?
That'd be all right.
Sure.
So motion to continue DP file number SE 66-2059, Chris McElroy, care of Wet Tech Land Design, 204 Route 6A, Sandwich, Mass. 02563 to the December 3rd meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have, RDA file, SCC 2025D-08, Paul and Lauren Marvel, care of LEC Environmental Consultants, for a request for determination of applicability for invasive species removal and revegetation at 230 Route 6A, East Sandwich, located at map 67 lot 8. Hi there.
Hey.
I'm just recusing myself for this one.
Oh, okay.
All right, for the record, Nate Goshgarian with LEC Environmental, presenting on behalf of the applicant, which in this case is Paul and Lauren Marvel of 230 Route 6A, East Sandwich. The project they are presenting tonight is a request for determination of applicability for the removal of invasive species and subsequent replanting of native species within the 100-foot buffer zone to an isolated vegetated wetland or IVW as protected under the Sandwich bylaw, Chapter 7 as a wetland, whether or not it borders a surface water. So thank you for the technology, by the way. This is amazing.
I know, right?
It's outstanding. So I'll go over the property real quick and then get into the project itself. So this is 230 Route 6A. It's a single-family home which sits atop some modern embankments that ascend south from Route 6A. In terms of wetland resource areas that we have on or within 100 feet of the project site, we've got a IBW, which is squarely centered in the southern half of the property. The project is broken up into three components. The first one is the vegetative removal. So what I'd like to do is kind of show you what it looks like if you're standing from this perspective on the western corner of the IBW to get you an idea of what we're actually dealing with in terms of invasive species. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So here we are, looking directly east. The house is up here, steep embankments leading up, and we've basically got a pretty dense myriad of invasive species that are bordering this IBW. Multiflora rose, burning bush, we've got some aggressive native plants, common greenbrier, Asiatic bittersweet, ton of black locust seedlings, but basically a very dense patchwork of bushes that are bordering this IBW. We've also got up to this right, which is this north-facing embankment to the south of the property, quite a lot of bamboo. And this is descending, downgrading, getting closer every single year, pretty dense monoculture. So that's kind of the second component of the first component of the project. In terms of the actual removal, what we're not proposing is any type of herbicide. We are taking a rather conservative approach for this initial assessment and this initial procurement of the methodology. So we are not proposing any type of herbicides for this. There's not going to be any heavy equipment. It's all going to be done with either hands or hand tools. And so that's the first component of the project. The second component of the project is the replanting around the areas that we have removed the vegetation from. Scroll up to the vegetation management plan. We've got our IBW, east-west orientation, and then these two polygons that are surrounding it. This first polygon, which is the lighter color green, maybe darker, is the kind of mesh of different vegetation that I had mentioned before. And this is the 1,900 square feet of bamboo that's descending down that embankment. The third portion of this project, and really probably most important just because of the fact that we're dealing with so many aggressive invasives that are persistent in nature, is the monitoring. This is not a short-term project, obviously. This is going to require monitoring over the next 3 to 5 years to make an assessment maybe every 2 or 3 months to see how we're actually doing, and then kind of revisit the entire project as a whole next year to see where we're at, and then maybe come back from the commission with either a modification or a future recommendation as to how to kind of proceed forward with the subsequent assessment. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
sure thing.
Okay, I'd like to open up for public comment. Public comment.
So this is another bylaw only isolated vegetated wetland on Route 6A. I know during the site visit, we discussed the pesticide herbicide use. If it's necessary, it can be done conditionally, but I appreciate, not wanting to go that route. We can certify the line that's been delineated with the data that we've got here if the commission wants to do that. And I would recommend, we can kind of do two here. A positive 2A determination would certify the delineation, and then a negative 2 determination regarding the resource area. I can say when we did our site visit, even though it was torrentially downpouring, it's very evident out there that place is going to be pretty overrun with bamboo if something isn't done. It's literally like coming down the hillside. There's plenty of natives in there, and they're definitely getting crowded. I think it was pretty dry when we checked it out despite the rain, but you can tell where the depression is, where there's definitely a collection of water at some point. So those are my recommendations. Overall, I think it would be necessary to help with the bamboo issue. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Board members?
How did the bamboo get there?
That is a great question. I wish I had the answer.
Does this property have control of the entire mass of bamboo in that area, or is there bamboo offsite
Yeah,
that you can't
the
control?
latter. It is offsite. I don't know necessarily where it originates from, but it appears to be descending. So I would imagine.
So you're taking the portion that you can take up to your property line, but
Exactly.
there are
Yep.
others.
Yep, we're also gonna have kind of a buffer between the next, the
That's
property
gonna be
line
a
as well.
tough, place to hold that line, because the rhizomes, because it spreads, I'm sure you know this, but it spreads rhizomatically. So it grows in its roots and it comes up. And that is why people have to put like barriers in at edges to try to make those roots like rebound and go back. So that's tough. That's tough because you're there. Do you think that having like a mow strip or like a border on the property line there would help you be able to control it a little bit better or something like, or is there a barrier that should be put there to control the offsite?
Yeah, all great points. I mean, one of the things, first of all, we're hoping to do this work sooner than later, right? And to your point, we're probably gonna stake the boundary with a little bit of a buffer to that southerly property line to demarcate that area. But, you know, that's really one of the reasons for the the monitoring plan is to reassess this next year because we may have to get innovative with like a secondary approach, to your point, putting something underground or some type of barrier that's gonna prevent it from
Okay.
sprouting back up.
So you're kind of taking out a little bit of a, let's do this, let's figure out what we're dealing with and come in and do it.
Exactly, a conservative approach initially, see where we're at next year. And
I
what we
don't
have to
think
do.
you're gonna be able to control bamboo by just cutting it though, like you're not. So I don't know what we're talking about here, honestly, because you cannot just cut bamboo and expect that you're gonna control it. You have to remove all of its roots. It's exactly a lot like the knotweed. You have to remove all of its roots. Any little cut root just makes a whole new little plant and lives on. So I kind of question your approach that you're just gonna cut it with hand tools and really get anywhere.
Understood. Yeah, excavation could be a very, something we consider next year.
All right.
Get rid of those rising
So
systems.
how are we gonna see them back when they have to do these? When this purely removal of bamboo fails, because it will, I mean, and they're gonna need to do more. So how are we gonna see them back for what more they're gonna do or how it's gonna need to be modified?
Well, I mean, with an RDA, you can't amend them.
That's right.
Good condition to include, additional mitigation or additional, bamboo management as needed, as approved by the agent, and then we can go back and forth with that. I mean, we could do it under an administrative review, depending on the severity and extent. There's a couple different ways to go about it. I think conditioning it for the future in the next 3 years, as good as the RDA is valid, could help. I mean, if it was like a notice of intent, you could extend it and amend it as needed, but the RDA kind of limits what you can do with that permit in those 3 years and those conditions, so.
Can you give me some insight on why you're strategizing the removal of the bamboo as you've proposed it here?
Well, really initially. just
Because
to get-
it's not typical of bamboo removal protocol.
Right. So we gotta consider this a secondary product. The initial thought is to get rid of the immediate vegetation surrounding the IBW with, yes, a very conservative approach initially to address the bamboo, which will have to be readdressed next year. I think it's just to get the ball rolling and then to see where we're at next year. I mean, I do agree, I don't have any type of resolve really in my thoughts with this. I do agree with you, it's probably gonna bounce back, but I think we probably next year have to be more innovative, bring it either through maybe an NOI or something like that to address the bamboo for the long term.
I think you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
I don't even know why we're here approving that bamboo removal, because it's not approving removal. We're approving mowing down bamboo that we know is gonna come back up.
Why wouldn't we just do the NOI now?
Well, I guess-
Why are we waiting a year?
I mean, I guess the benefit, like, they're coming in with a project that isn't necessarily necessary.
That's
so-
right. It is a great project. I
Yeah,
do want
like-
to say,
for
but
sure.
I am just trying to help you, help yourselves. Like, the bamboo is not gonna go anywhere for you
I guess it is the
or
most,
anybody else.
it's probably the most cost-effective, like, attempt to look at the land and get a sense of it, but, yeah.
Those roots are still there.
But I guess the whole point of land management is long-term, and they do have a long-term plan, so I can't fault them.
But we
for-
can't manage that because it's under an RDA.
Yeah.
Other than conditioning it, for future removal, excavation, or alteration as needed, and then deal with that in-house if you're comfortable with that. there are, I can look back and see what determination we can choose that would require a notice of intent. But then, that kind of limits the, that stops the RDA, says, okay, you need an NOI, and makes the RDA kind of moot at that point.
It's cost prohibitive.
Yeah, we could also issue the RDA without the bamboo aspect and just work on the isolated vegetated wetland and the other vegetation, and then if they wanted to come back with a notice of intent for some really, hit the bamboo heavy and go that route. I don't know, there's a couple different ways, but it really is gonna come out to what you're comfortable with.
Is it coming from both the butters that?
It is, to my knowledge, when I was on site, it looks like it's coming from all the abutters that are behind them, and their property
looks
is
like
getting
it's
involved.
It's a shame
Yeah.
that somebody can plant a plant like that can destroy somebody else's property
Yeah.
and not have any skin in that game. Just to say that out loud.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating part.
Yeah.
It's like you are in it's just a bad situation, and
So is it because the thought is that it's close to being negligible, at least the mowing of it, that it's not, there's no point in capturing it under the RDA?
well, we know that if you actually want to remove the bamboo, you're gonna have to come
Long
back.
term, right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, are we comfortable as a board allowing staff or having staff be in charge of that bigger process that might have to be done?
because as you said, you could put in like a trench, then put in.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
Yeah, that
things
would
that I think that professionals
Yeah.
know what to do. So what if we did this, what if we could condition it that they could work with staff, but we also condition it that a certified, some kind of, a company who's certified in managing this type of thing, like you have to perform, like certain people have to perform the work, like
Like certified
qualified
bamboo.
people would have to remove the work, such as your company, your
Correct.
company do that?
So we're working with a qualified contractor to
Yeah.
do this work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then we could
So
still.
they would also be involved prospectively, like in the monitoring, to help give recommendations and then provide some type of recommendation in the future.
yeah.
And next year.
With the understanding that this is extremely short term, at least this initial
Yeah,
treatment.
we get what you're trying to do. I would be comfortable with staff doing that,
Okay,
okay?
Yeah.
And then, if it's anything, if it requires some, really intense mitigation and excavation and something that's completely without, out of the purview, you can come back with a notice of intent and we can address it then. But if it's something we can address on a smaller scale and condition as such,
That's right.
and if it seems like it's gonna be anything crazy, obviously I will come back to you guys.
I like that.
Which,
Maybe comfortable with that.
yeah, because ultimately, like, we are kind of patching together a nice line of properties here.
Yeah.
We had certainly one today, there was one, I think it's 4 doors down, that they have some management proposals. So like,
Yeah.
what this is happening is exactly what should be happening, is people being like, let's actively manage the land. So we appreciate the project,
Yeah,
because
I appreciate
that's a
that.
question that needs to keep getting asked, and hopefully more homeowners say it's worth it to do this. So I think learning from these projects for us is important, to see like, what is working, what's a strategy that we can recommend to others. So we look forward to learning with you.
Good. All right. Are we comfortable? Good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I just need a motion to,
So motion to issue a positive 2A determination to certify the delineated resource area and a -2 determination recommended for RDA file number SCC 2025D-08, Paul and Lauren Marble, care of LEC Environmental Consultants, Inc., 230 Route 6A, East Sandwich, 02563.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, thanks for your time, everybody.
So moved.
Is that East Sandwich?
I don't know where that line starts.
Because the other project is Sandwich. Like, I grew up off a gully, and that's
It
Sandwich.
winds up being interchangeable. Some people will say sandwich, East Sandwich. I just looked at the zip code. Honestly.
All right. Okay, guys, let's go, continue filings. We'll start with DEP file number SC 662057, Karen Ricciard Kelly, care of AM Wilson Associates, for the notice of intent for the new deck with balcony, boardwalk, and stairs to the bank and mowing at 39 Torrey Road, Sandwich, located at map 63, lot 13. Am I to understand the man who, the people who went to the,
Yes.
yeah, they're not
Yeah,
here.
I think Jonathan and Jeremy went to the site visit and they are
They're both not here.
so.
Maybe you could fill us in
Oh,
about the site.
I was there for this.
Oh,
thing.
good.
Oh, you were there. Oh,
Excellent.
sorry, I'm sorry, Tyler. My bad.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so, hi.
Good evening.
How are you?
Arlene Wilson, A.M. Wilson Associates, here for the Richardellis. I don't think you want me to go through this whole thing again.
No.
But it was continued so that some of the commissioners could take a view. I think we saw that the expansion of or the proposed expansion of the deck is in turf lawn, it's as flat as a pancake. And the meadow mowing is going to be essentially the same as was approved for the next door. The intent is to mow the footpath on a regular basis, but the meadow once a year. And if the commission would like us to put some demarcation down along that path so that it doesn't spread or meander, we're happy to do that. It's clearly going to need to get mowed and then staked so people can see where that is. And then the boardwalk, which our intent is to stop short of the mean high water line so that we do not need a Chapter 91 license. They will be able to get their kayaks in the water at high tide, but it will be tidally constrained in terms of that. I wouldn't want to trudge through the mud down there. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that might come up.
Okay, great. Is there any public comment? All right, who's that? Jenny, do you have anything to add, or you want to go to Tyler?
I just had a couple notes, I guess. So I understand if you're not touching the mean high water line, you won't need a Chapter 91, so that's great. And I did look a little more closely at the plans in the GIS. You're not crossing the river, you're just going kind of to that mean high water line. So you won't be impacting any type of shellfish habitat, right? Okay, because otherwise we would require a shellfish mitigation survey, but if you're not in shellfish habitat, then that fixes that there. So when I had done a site visit prior to the commission going out, that meadow area is really densely woody vegetated. You know, it looks very thick. Obviously, wouldn't be able to walk through there right now. I don't know if it was historically a meadow before the woody vegetation took over, similar to the neighbor at 41, because I know their meadow area was a lot less scrubby. Rather than mowing it down in a similar schedule, would you be able to kind of do more of like a restoration and remove invasives, replace with natives, like replace with a native meadow mix or something, rather than just mowing it consistently? It's just kind of a note that I had thought of, because it doesn't look like the meadow at 41. So I just think if you're mowing all that woody vegetation, it's going to come back. You know, I think it needs to be replaced with something. And that's all. Yeah, we talked about the 91 line. Okay. Yeah, that's all I had concerns about.
Thank you, Jenna.
So this area was historically farmland, not cropland, but animals, and it was kept low and animals cropped the grass. I think one of the differences between this site and the one next door is that we were able to get the notice of intent put together for that one quickly, and so there was just one season between the time that you saw it mowed without a permit and the time that you saw it for the permit for mowing. This one, she's being good about not mowing it when she was told not to do it anymore. And so it's had probably almost 3 growing seasons to come up. I think in terms of continuity and facility of maintaining would make more sense to be able to mow this to 12 inches once a year, the way the the property next door is if, and I suppose you could include this as a condition, that if there were shrubs or trees in the meadow that were 4 feet high now, that we would mow around them and leave them to become
Like a certain
some kind of
diameter,
woody
yeah.
cover for shade or something for the native animals. But this is hopefully mostly going to be bird habitat.
I had one more note. When I had researched this a little bit more after our last meeting and looked at the aerial view of all the other properties, going from Great Bend down Torrey, there doesn't appear to be another property that has quite that extent of a boardwalk.
It's true.
Great Bend had some stuff going on there, but there was also additional things going on there that were, with paths and stairs and things like that. But the rest of Torrey just seems to have very similar yardage and then bank and then river without a big boardwalk like that. So I understand why you want one. I totally get that. But I just don't see the benefit of the boardwalk in those areas where everything else is kind of a very nice continuous bank.
Be detrimental?
Yeah.
It could be. I mean, it's definitely, you're putting a boardwalk with pilings into a bank. I think it's a trip off of Squirtin over there. So no one else, I'm not saying just because no one else has it doesn't mean you can't have it, but it just would be kind of an outlier there to an otherwise very vegetated stable bank.
That's great. Thank you. Board? Because Tyler, you were there.
Yeah, I had just 2 comments. The first was there was a lot of invasive plant material in there too. So my recommendation was going to be similar to Jenna's. If we could request more of maybe like a restoration, if you will, like multiple years of mowing in order to maintain that area, and then we would have to check with how the different. We don't want to give you the same. We don't want to give you not a preferential treatment, even though you've been doing it the right way. But how do we manage to say, hey, we don't want to leave perpetuity that every single year machines are really close to a resource area and it's a really, really large area. We might be able to work with you too as like perpetuity to maintain that path, and there might be mowing around the path, and it could be maybe a little bit more than traditionally, but like the edges of the property, if we're able to mow, looks like 10,000 feet plus. I don't see how that's beneficial to the habitat. I do understand your point. Bringing it back to meadow habitat, and there is a very much a need for meadow as opposed to other species, especially on the Cape. So if it became more of a restoration where we were adding some seed mixes and trying to reestablish that, and then maybe saying, hey, we're at a point where our mowing has success, we have a successful mowing, and we just want to do some maintenance. Like there may be some woody shrubs that are invasive that come back, and we just want to manage those rather than a mowing. If you were amenable to that, I think that would be a better approach environmentally. And the other portion that I was just wondering was the reason for a mowed path as opposed to extending the boardwalk. I understand it's probably cost prohibitive. It's another thing, but if we had just a fixed boardwalk that was connecting it, then we wouldn't have the need for that constant mowing. But I would open that to the board and also have you explain why the design choices.
Sounds like we're working a little bit at cross purposes here. The area that we had proposed just to mow for the footpath is dry, and the soils are firmer, as opposed to the lower end where the boardwalk's proposed. The soils are muddy and silty. They hold water for a long time. To be honest with you, the clients asked if they really needed the boardwalk. They were happy to slog through the mud. I said I thought it would be to their advantage as well as the environment to get the boardwalk in there so that they're not damaging the soil and the vegetation stays. We're proposing to use a slotted or graded surface on that boardwalk so that the vegetation can grow up through it essentially, and hold the soil underneath. If the board wanted the boardwalk to come back to the base of that little upper slope, where we're proposing the stone slab stairs, I think I can talk the client into that, but I'm not sure that it's really necessary.
So are they saying that they're gonna, so if we don't have the boardwalk there, they're gonna trudge through it anyway, basically, so it's more advantageous to have the boardwalk?
What will happen is that eventually they'll wind up with a swale through there.
Okay.
And it'll be wet. You might like to have it grow wetland plants, but they won't. And it will cause problems for maintenance later on.
I appreciate your honesty in the, being realistic about it.
Yeah.
That's what we need to know, so thank you on that. Guys?
And in terms of the meadow mowing, certainly, this is a 3-year permit. And it's possible to condition to have a couple of years worth of annual mowing except for the taller of the woody shrubs. And someone would need to be on site with the contractor on the first round to make sure that that happened. And then we can do reports as you commonly require them for a couple of years, and we can talk to Jenna or whoever is your staff person at that time, come back to the board and do a presentation about what's happening, and have you make a decision about further mowing after that. So there would need to be a statement in the order, I think, that said that the mowing was for a specific period of time, and then the commission would review whether it could be continued.
If I may, 41 has that exact condition, that the mowing schedule that we agreed on during that meeting is only good for the 3-year duration of their permit. So if they wanted to mow outside of that, they'd have to come back with something. Also, I had just a question regarding the boardwalk. If the boardwalk were to be extended over the meadow area to the edge of the yard where it slopes down there, would you need to mow the meadow if the boardwalk's going over the vegetation?
If we wanted to maintain the meadow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just thinking, vegetation-wise, if it would be less impactful, to walk over keep the shrub layer at a certain height, and walk over, and then continue your way down to the edge of the river.
I mean, you would lose the benefit of the meadow for bird habitat altogether in a very short period of time.
I do like having an experiment, which is what this is, 3 years, of seeing like 2 properties next to each other managing in a similar manner. And what does that do? Because I don't have an answer to that, because I don't know of anyone that's looking at that. So I think it gives us the opportunity to see what the impact is. And if we're like, ooh, this is a lot of work next to a resource area, which is true, we can respond. But I like the last project, I like having these properties having a similar plan, and for us to be able to learn from it. So from visiting the site visit on the neighboring property after they mowed that first time, it did look healthy. I mean, you're managing a woody that's going to get really thick, and certainly I think it looked good for me from the last project. So the boardwalk though, and I initially was same thing. I was like, this boardwalk is an outlier, but I think it is going to turn like the path down to the neighboring property. There's a swale there because it's eroded. So I think in some ways the boardwalk prevents more damage to the resource area than a simple trail does.
Yeah, there's a small, and as you mentioned, it's a very simple construction. They're just putting the timbers in. It's like a small initial disturbance for a lifetime of. I think that's good. I just think the extension would maybe it also allows that continuous mowing to not be sort of part of that. So if it's all one contiguous thing, then we just have the mowing for the sense of restoration. I think we should honor the fact that a neighboring property has the same. I was just thinking if it's continuously mowed, that's a little bit counterproductive. But the fact that it's the life of the permit, I think that's a good way to manage it. And then coming back, if you say, hey, we want to continue to mow it, and you have a good argument, we should honor that as well. But it might be that there's a lot of good stuff that's working around it. It might not be feasible, and then coming up with some alternatives. So
It keeps us in control. Let's just maintain control of it and see what's gonna happen, right? Yeah, I agree with that. Okay. Anybody else have any other questions for Arlene or anything else? We're comfortable on this.
Yeah. So just to be clear, for conditions, similar mowing conditions to the neighbor, longevity of the permit, once every, whatever the schedule was there, I have it listed.
Yeah.
To no more than 12 inches?
Yeah.
And then, do we want to condition mowing the path to be in perpetuity, or, for a width of no more than how many feet wide?
I think they should be able to mow the path 4 feet wide.
Okay, we've done that on other
Yeah.
properties. 4 feet, okay. Okay. And the height of the boardwalk over the bank, I know dunes is 2 feet typically. Do we want to stick with 2 feet above the bank on installation at the grade, or?
I think a lot of times you do that because you're not wanting to have the light the reduced light affect the vegetation, but they're using open grading, which literally this stuff will grow right through it.
Okay.
So I'm not too concerned. I think minimum of 12, because that will just allow like the bunnies and things to be able to go
And not squish
underneath.
anything under it?
Yeah.
Okay, minimum 12 inches, not feet. Tall boardwalk. Okay.
Just
More
like
than
that one
bunnies.
on the road, we're like, if we do it, 20 feet tall.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I needed clarification on. I think so.
I think we just need a motion.
Motion to close and approve DEP file number SE 66-2057 Karen Riccadelli, care of AM Wilson Associates, Inc., 39 Torrey Road, Sandwich, Mass. 02537, with standard and special conditions, as discussed.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, William.
So that it doesn't sit around between Sandwich and Marston's Mills. Mail is like a third world
So
country.
you'd rather pick it up than certified? Okay.
I don't know what happens over in our area. The mail's really bad.
And here's the radiation.
Okay, next we have DEP, file number SE 66-2060. Stephen Neely, care of Marsh Matters Environmental, for the notice of intent for proposed addition to a single-family home at 187A, Route 6A in Sandwich, map 53, lot 13.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Good evening. Nice to see you again. You weren't here last time, Kimberly. But, yeah, no, that's why I actually backed it up so you can see at least the beginning of where we were, and then so we can all be.
I watched the video though.
You did? Okay, cool.
I'm
Yeah,
all happy.
yeah. I had my son watch it too. He's 3 years old, so he didn't get in. So, but yeah. So today I'm here with Loretta, and then I'm here with Mike. He's actually the expert. He's the one that prepared all of the documents that you're seeing, and he is the authority. So I'm just an architect that design buildings that they happen to be near dangerous areas. So we're doing an addition, as you see, to this little house right here. This house was a cottage. Originally, it was a hunting duck cottage, I believe was what it was. Then the client here actually acquired the property. They install a very sophisticated septic system in it and obtain occupancy permit. The challenges with that property is that it is very tiny. It is just 750 square feet, in there, and it's basically one kitchen and one bedroom with one bathroom, and that's it. So it's just 2 floors. It's 350 square feet each floor. So it is. I mean, you can rent it as a room, but you cannot live there. So that's where this project comes from. So it's trying to create a living room and another bathroom and a space that you can actually have people over or like even live your life. Not everybody's in the same room. So that's where the project started. Here are all of the details on how to build the foundation, how we're dealing with water, and all of that. What happened last 2 weeks ago when we came here, there was. And if you see, I actually dropped from my set the site plan that wasn't accurate, as advised by Bernice. So basically now the architectural set is only about the architecture, and then we do have the official site plans are actually what it comes from the site. So there's no conflict in there anymore. So I want to switch to the site one. Here we go. So one thing that it became obvious last time when we came to present is that we were building right up to the point of where the 14 ends. So we're building right up to where the wetlands. So great questions actually happened, that how could we build something against a wetland without disturbing it, which was in reality impossible. So that was a great observation, and actually I haven't thought about it, and we were actually very gladly we were brainstorming a little bit on how we could solve that. And one thing that will happen in this property, no matter what, is like because the property currently sits at 9 feet above sea level, is actually too low. So the property, anything that you do to it that is more than 50% of the value, it has to actually raise the property. So if we're going to jack it up and build a new foundation, you might as well build it in a better location. So that's what we're proposing, and that's where the conversations this week were. We reach out to health. Our Ed Stone is the person that is actually our land surveyor. He actually has been very back and forth with us, explaining to us that potentially we don't need to move the septic because that septic is very advanced and very sophisticated. And now we can build right up to it and just treat our foundation, especially because our foundation is non-occupiable. So it's just actually raised. So we can limit the disturbance if we actually go that route. That's something that we still have to get a final approval on, but it seems to be possible. And in reality, if we have to pull the foundation and can deliver the building a little bit to actually leave the septic in that location, we could do that. So, but that's why here in this graphic, you see that the septic from one graphic to the next, it has no move. The only problem that we do have today is that our land surveyor is a little under the weather, actually seriously under the weather. So he wasn't able to actually get us the official document. These are my markups on his, and we review them, but he hasn't had the staff to actually draw them officially. So we can supply you those, but I thought that was important for us to come here, and we started also discussing remediation. And that's what this is showing. Keisha, that isn't here today, she had a comment that there was a lot of gravel in the site. And actually in conversations with Ed, he actually pinpointed that gravel actually moved through time, that gravel didn't used to look like that. And also, where is my correct address? Here we go. So one thing also, there was a disparity between the plans that we submitted last week and the plans that we have this time, that they didn't show the extent of the gravel accurately. So that's one thing that we work very hard in achieving. And then when we propose ideas on how to make this project work for everybody, is actually trying to control that gravel and reduce it to the minimal expression that still makes the project functional, but at the same time that actually let the space naturalize and limits the scope of intervention. So having said that,
Thank you so much.
should I drink water?
Public comment. Closing public comment.
My biggest concern was the correspondence about potentially having to move the septic or move the leach field.
Yeah.
I popped into the health department on my way out and wanted to make sure that was something that can be done,
Yeah.
Which it is. So as long as it's not moving closer to the resource area, but with what you've said, you likely won't have to move any of it, so that satisfies that and my concerns there. I did get all of the revisions you submitted about moving the entire building, silt fence and wattle, 2-to-1 remediation for disturbance, and that you're waiting on updates from your surveyor. So I think, my concerns were the same as last time, along with the commission's. So I can appreciate picking up the whole place and moving it over, so. It's really gonna be ultimately what you guys are comfortable with. Obviously, it's a fragile area and there's a lot going on in that tiny portion. Historically, there was a violation there, pretty good one.
Can we go, can you walk us through that and what was mitigated? Because I'm just seeing more gravel and I want to understand.
Yeah, so, and forgive me if I'm missing like any tiny details, but from what I understand, it was a duck camp, pretty much a dry camp. And then the person who lived there tried to do their own thing and build it the way they wanted with a septic and, yeah, it was a whole, literally. It was a whole thing. So it was more under Dave DeCanto's reign and error that he got everything back up to code and into compliance and order of conditions issued and things were on the up and up after that. I believe when I spoke to him about it, the septic system is like some very intense rerouted way, so it's not impacting the marsh. I can certainly send you the file if you want, it's long.
So as part of that, so that's when all of this gravel starts showing up, is because all of that septic work that's happening, that was all illegal?
That's my guess. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it came. I mean, I could look at like the Google history.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to know that.
750 square feet?
It's small, yeah.
Okay, is that the lot size or is that the?
Is the house 750?
That's existing house.
Yeah,
Existing houses on
because you walk in and it's like a little entry, kitchen, bathroom.
You know, the lot goes all the way to Scourgeon Creek, so it's actually super
Yeah, the
long.
lot goes way.
This is just like a third of the lot.
And then that kind of goes with my other comment about having a couple of conditions in perpetuity to protect that area of the lot, so that, I guess, an island-ish area that's north, or I think that's north. On the picture above the house there, doesn't get altered. So no cutting of vegetation outside of the resource and buffer zone or resource area outside of what's needed for this.
100%.
In perpetuity. And then no storage of equipment, boats, etc. in that buffer zone or on that little peninsula there. And just like we had for the last one, where we could allow maintaining the path to get out there. And that's the only little section that can be maintained. If you don't maintain it, it's just gonna wind up still getting tromped down because it's obviously been traveled. But, I mean, it's a beautiful spot. I can see why you'd wanna sit out there and look at the view.
Right. Can the gravel be, can we change, does it have to be gravel?
Well, I can appreciate that it's pervious.
Yes, that's
It's
true.
not a concrete driveway. They're not in dune, so like technically you can have some hardscape there and flood, as well as, buffer zones and everything else. When I had the gravel when I was out there is loose. I don't think there's any hardener or anything like that.
Sometimes it
If
gets.
you wanted to reduce it and turn it into more vegetation, that's, something you guys can discuss.
I think they are as part of this proposal.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know you want more than that, but
It would be nice to have like some grasses of some sort, because everything else is grasses, so it would like to be like, when you have a continuation of the landscape, of the natural, into the base of the house especially, that will be very nice. So especially now raising the house, we'll get an even better view. So it will be kind of nice to be eye level with the grasses from the
are
grasses.
you raising the house now?
Yeah, we have to raise it.
Because you're meeting the
as part of,
50%?
yeah, that's why we can move it, because we have to lift it anyways.
Okay.
So that's why.
Okay.
So it's going from 9 feet to 16 feet. So the house is going to be 7 feet taller than it is.
With piles?
No, we're doing it with the foundation, with the penetrated foundation, so water can go right through.
Oh, the flood.
So, yeah, the flood. So. Yeah. So that's why we can get close to the septic, because it's non-occupiable. We're like so far from it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I like the conditions that Jen pointed out.
What are you doing for the mitigation though, the actual planting? Do you specify it in here and I'm just not seeing it?
No, we haven't specified in reality. I mean, we thought about some grasses, we thought about some blackberries or local natives, but the problem with that area is like, for example, in a king tide, occasionally saltwater will get to it.
Yeah.
So anything that is not already there probably is not going to make it. So we can probably remove some of the gravel and let the grasses actually take over that area. But beyond that, it's going to be a challenge to sustain anything. It's just
Well, there's plenty of natives that will withstand that. I'm sure Mike knows what to plant in there. But we're gonna need a revised plan, right? This
correct.
isn't- So I'm sure
knew
that
yeah.
it's just gonna call out the square footage, and
Yeah.
then just like any mitigation job, a lot of times you're gonna plant some and some aren't gonna make it. So that's when you say, hey, this is where the salt was. Let's put some high tide bush or something in there. But I like that there's a reduction in the gravel.
Yeah.
There's now
What's your concern? Yeah.
there's now a vegetated buffer strip. They're all kind of straight lines, but they go around it so it encapsulated, so there's not gravel that can go back in. I think it looks good. Is there beyond that? Is it naturally vegetated up to the salt marsh?
Yeah.
Where the
So that what you see in the yellow is actually the perfect straight edge of the gravel.
yeah, so this will essentially transition right into a naturally vegetated.
Correct. Yeah.
No, I think that'll be really good. I think it's just an enhanced buffer that meets so there'll actually be more buffer than is actually shown with green.
The other thing I had was, how you're handling your roof drainage. I think you mentioned rain barrels.
Yeah, ideally inside because we have such a tall foundation, such a tall cavity, basically.
Can
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
put those in dry wells?
Can I put?
Can you do dry wells?
Yes, we could do dry.
You can do a rain barrel to a dry well with an
Yeah.
overflow, but you're gonna have, you potentially will be overflowing your
Yeah.
rain barrels. So rain barrels are great if you wanna reuse that water,
Yeah.
perfect. But with an overflow,
Yeah.
it goes to a dry well.
Okay, yeah, we can add the note.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you're gonna put on a plan, the planting? You know, how are we gonna do with the planting?
Well, this isn't he was saying the engineer hasn't revised.
So will you
Correct.
have planting
Yeah.
on a plan that when you come back?
Correct. That's why we came here. It's like basically we don't have the official document by Ed, but we wanted to sit in front of you and say, hey, we've been working on it. We found a bunch of info. This is our strategy. If you bless the strategy, then we'll come back next time with the official document. And these are the plannings that we want to do. You can even have the green document and then the official document. You see that we're not reducing it in any way, shape, or form. And so we'll be faster next time.
You include all those things, you don't necessarily need to come back if you've included everything that we've asked for, right?
They don't have the revised stamped plan
Right.
from their surveyor, so they still
Right.
need to come back.
So
It
you
has
can
to
do
be
it
an
approve it, yeah.
application, but she's saying you wouldn't necessarily have to make the trip if you didn't want to.
That's
Oh,
Right, okay,
Okay.
seriously, sorry, yeah.
So I can provide it to
that was the
them,
only-
and then you can.
Yeah, because then I would update it and then we could close it.
It would be
if
more
that's
of a
up to you guys.
formality.
Oh, okay,
I think
cool.
That's what we're
That's
trying to
perfect.
say.
That's what I meant.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you.
I thought you meant, yeah, my bad.
That's all right.
Yeah,
Good. Okay.
awesome.
So we're gonna have to continue.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, but they don't have to attend the
But they're gonna
continuance
have
if
to,
they
that's
don't want to.
that was my point.
Yeah.
I think we probably. We'd
You probably-
We'd love to have you. I'm not saying we don't want
I'm
to.
surprised we didn't see you at the.
We want to
first
make sure it gets done.
That's right, that's right. Okay, so, unless there's any other questions,
Thank you.
December 3rd, work for you?
I won't be able to be here next time.
well, good thing you don't have to be.
Okay. Yeah.
If we could do December 3rd, and if we still have issues with Ed, I know he's ill right now, so it's hard to get. I'm just worried about
always continue.
meeting that deadline with the holiday and all that stuff. But if we can do December 3rd, and then I can submit a letter
You got it.
requesting an additional continuance if we need more time.
You got it.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to me.
Motion to continue DEP file number SE 66-2060, Stephen Kennelly, care of Marsh Matters Environmental, 497A, Route 6A, Sandwich Pass, 02537, to the December 3rd meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
All those in favor?
Sorry.
Did we second
Was there a
that?
second?
Second.
When I second, you look at me, so I said I'm not going to second.
Somebody needs to.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I will see you in December, so have a great Christmas.
You as
Merry
well.
Christmas. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, certificate of compliance, thank you for your patience. This is for DEP file number SE 66 and 1676. Amendment 1, John Hoy, care of Environmental Consulting and Restoration, for a request to amend an existing order of conditions, which was DEP file number 1676, for the proposed revised house footprint at Assessor's Map 40, parcel 58 and 59, located at 47 and 49 Atkins Road in Sandwich. Thank you so much for waiting.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. So my name is Attorney Jen Reisig. I represent the homeowners. They're actually in the process of selling their home, and that's how this came about. They were surprised to find that the order of conditions hadn't been closed out. And so, here we are. And it's not to amend it. It was amended in 2016, and then it was, and then we.
That's how it's read.
Oh,
yeah.
is it? Okay,
Yeah,
I know I
because
saw
technically
that.
the amendment takes place of the original.
Okay.
So you had 1676 and now it's 1676 AM1. Yeah,
Okay,
that's the
so we're seeking,
confusion
yeah,
there.
certificate of compliance for that. When they did the plans and they did go out, the engineer, it was determined that there was some relatively minor areas of concern that were not in substantial compliance. The house is built as per plan, as was a septic system. But it turns out that there's a patio area, some steps, some lawn that are within and a shed. But ironically, and this does happen a lot in conveyancing, when I mentioned that to the homeowner, they thought it was permitted because it had a building permit for it, they said. And I just explained there's a difference in it, so, and people often think that, I'm sure that you hear that from time to time. So in any event, it has a permit according to them for building. But yes, the shed as well in the 50-foot buffer zone. There's also a portion of paved driveway that was paved by the neighbor without my client's permission, which we're working through as well. So, but yeah, so we're hoping, with the commission's blessing, that we can get the certificate of compliance and potentially get an administrative review if you feel necessary for permitting of these other areas of concern.
Okay, I know there's no public comment, so.
So I did go out there this morning. I did try to call you back, but
No,
for
that's
some reason it
fine.
didn't go through. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I spoke to the homeowners. The patio area that technically doesn't have a permit at this time, I don't know if it even would have required one had they asked for one when it was put in. It's pervious. It looks to be, decorative bricks about this size that were just placed, and then a little fire bowl that's off the ground and arranged. Pretty minor, enough for like 2 lawn chairs if you squeeze them. So I don't think the patio I think that's a non-issue. If someone came before me with that same thing, I would probably consider that landscaping as long as they weren't digging anything out. The shed is a standalone shed. Same thing, I spoke to them and they're like, we had historic, we had building, and I was like, and you missed me. It happens. The shed does not appear as it stands to be impacting the resource area. It is up high on an up-gradient side of the hill. And then it slopes down in tons of vegetation, a lot of different types of vegetation. It's definitely an impacted wetland, mostly by the railroad track that runs pretty much right through the middle of it. And then the shed is also kind of adjacent to the edge of a driveway for the neighbor. So like there's no more impact, in my opinion, that the shed isn't causing any more impact than the paved driveway that's right next to it. That's part of like I don't know if it's part of the neighbor's property or the road layout or what, but there's, a landing strip there, and then shed, and then the wetland kind of goes around it. It's closer to I guess if you're standing in front of the house, the right side of the property than it is to the shed. The shed's probably outside of the 50-foot. So I would be, if you're comfortable, if we find it necessary, I could issue an administrative review after the fact, because technically the shed is in the buffer zone. I think that would be the way to go with that if you were comfortable with it. The other ways you could go, you could deny the COC, but I think that's a little severe considering what's being built. It's not like the septic is, built without a permit or something egregious. And I could do an admin review permit. You could deny it, or we can just, call it like it is, that it's not impacting the resource area. So, not any more than the rail trail going, or railway with the trash train going through it, so, which is obvious, so. Kind of what you're comfortable with in that aspect, but otherwise the site was in substantial compliance. They had, some general landscaping, a fence, bird feeders, those kinds of things, but nothing huge, so.
I don't know, I'm comfortable if Jen is comfortable that it's not, impacting the resource area. I would, with an administrative review, maybe.
We can definitely, back backtrack it and do an admin review.
Yeah.
It's a one-page document done in-house for $75. If you came in tomorrow, I could give it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
That would be fine.
if that works for you guys, and then we could still issue the COC
That's right. If it's right. Yeah,
with that, conversation.
we okay with that?
One thing I think is worth noting is that this plan did have a clear limit of work on it. And there was work that was done outside of the limit of work. There was lawn added into a 50-foot buffer that wasn't lawn before. Patio, fencing. Lots of improvements were done in an area that would have needed to come back to the board for review and approval, and would have likely been mitigated for in some way. It's a little egregious to me that someone can just do something after the fact that's well outside of the established limit of work. Like that is outside of the limit of work, and then we're just say it's okay. That's why we like to have everything shown on the plan so that we can understand what wants to happen. Would, in hindsight, oftentimes when people get their permits originally, they just want to get this house approved and they're not thinking about the greater landscape, and then they do things like this to just make it more livable, right? But we would have wanted those things to be on that plan before. They should have been on that plan before, or it should have been amended. Because it's very clear that you had the surveyor gave you a clear limit of work, and it was ignored as the limit of work. So I'm just disappointed in, I guess, how a lack of respect that has been shown to the land that this has been put on. You're very close to these wetlands and you're creating lawn areas at your will at this point. And now you're going to sell the property and it's going to be able to live with this, so.
Might have a solution.
Huh?
Might have a solution, if you want one.
Sure, we do want some.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I understand, I'm looking at the two plans in front of me now, and it's, a little more obvious on the big plans than versus the computer screen, so I can appreciate that. Along with the certificate of compliance, we could issue a letter to the new owners, referring back to the original order of conditions that typically all of them have some sort of condition about planting mitigation and scheduling. We could write a condition as part of the COC, stay in compliance to restore, a buffered edge or something like that.
What about prior to sale?
We could do that too, but it would be on
Wasn't
the
them.
new owners.
It would be on the onus of the new owners to do it as opposed to.
I think we literally conditioned something for a home sale down here on this road.
Yeah, George's
Did
Rock.
they ever do it?
When my first site visit, I know that's still in the works. I don't think it's completed yet, but I've been by.
It's hard to stay motivated to do those kinds of things.
But they're more motivated if they're trying to sell.
Like the most motivated you are is when you want to sell.
And if I may, I don't think they did it intentionally. I don't think it was an intentional disregard for conservation. No, I understand. I'm just thinking along the lines of, forgiveness versus asking permission. I don't think they were seeking to not ask permission in hopes for forgiveness. So in that way, I can understand, your position, and I don't necessarily disagree, right? I mean, there's areas of concern that were done within a buffer zone. Had it been done, willfully, I think maybe some kind of more of a punitive measure, maybe just a model to say, don't do this might be appropriate, but if it's not really impacting the buffer zone, that being the intent, of, you know, why we're here essentially. I think that should really be the focus. And in that way, I think administrative review might be an appropriate measure here.
I mean, you're motivated to work with your clients to do to close this out, right? That is your motivation. You're entitled to your opinion. You have placed lawn in a buffer zone. You've removed vegetation from a buffer zone. And if we were looking at this application new, we would have some requests for it. We would scrutinize it. We would want to restore buffers. We would want to definitely put a buffer in a drainage shed to protect from the runoff from the lawn. There are things that we would do that we wouldn't just, nobody would come in with this application and us just accept it and say, yes, that looks good. No way, that would never play out. So if we consider this a new, like if it were to come, we should have the same rules, right? Don't you think that we should have the same rules? I mean, just because this is after the fact, I don't think that you just get to get your hand, you know, and say that they didn't do it intentionally, which I will say, if this were done by a builder, that builder knows where his limited work line is. They know where they're not allowed and not allowed.
So what's the solution, Bernice?
So I think the solution is that we should have at least some mitigation.
Yeah, I think you're
and some
absolutely
reduction of lawn.
I think to set a lot of this is precedent too, and unfortunately, a lot of this sort of work, and like especially with enforcements, people are like, "Oh, we're not going to get a permit to do this, so we're just going to do it anyway."
That's right.
And I think it's up to us to sort of, unfortunately, put our foot down when things like this come ahead and say, "How can we work with the applicant, and how do we, if we were to issue a COC, how do we feel comfortable doing so, knowing that we
That's right.
had as little impact after the fact?"
Right.
Because I think to just tell
And
everyone,
then people will just do what they want.
yeah, I think it's also our role to work with people and try to be realistic. We don't know anybody's intent, so I don't think that's really I don't think it's part of our discussion at all. I think it's what does the plan of record show? What do we feel now is applicable? And in your job is to say, before, if we want this sale to happen, they have to appeal to what we think is.
I get what you're saying, Tyler. Can we actually go put that in it? Can we say, okay, as long as it goes back to the original plan, as long as you put back what it was supposed to be, then we'll issue the COC?
So we've done something similar for George's Rock Road. It was early in my time here, so I think it was between me and I believe it was Chuck. We can issue a closing letter to help with the transfer of everything to make the bank happy because they see this order of conditions on the property and everything. And then that letter would hold the new owner to the condition to restore however many feet we feel appropriate of lawn. Or we can deny the COC and follow this as a violation with a restoration order, and then after so many plantings are put in, have it come back and as a new COC. But obviously that doesn't work with deadlines and sales, which I know isn't our purview, but just trying to be considerate.
We can't do it for the current owner. We can't say like
we could,
but it has to be a restoration. It'd have to go that route. Like I'm trying to mix both worlds, right? Like we want to get done what we want done, but if they give it to the new owner,
it would be more civil at that point. It would have to be an agreement between the new owner and the old owner, and if the old owner refused, the new owner could pursue it civilly. But the way a lot of violations and things fall is on the property owner at the time. So if we were to issue a violation right now, it'd be on the current property owner.
Well, yeah.
And then if they didn't rectify it and they moved, and and I've seen this happen where they just like a violation falls by the wayside or an agent doesn't follow up on it or something, and then it's bought by somebody else, and they're like, now I'm responsible for this violation. They're not happy, but ultimately they have to be, happened on
they have to do due diligence before they buy the property.
Recognizing these violations, if we were to look at them from an impact standpoint, maybe to help guide in the mitigation.
We know, we've got the information, so what do you guys wanna do? What do you wanna, how do you wanna solve this?
I think if we were to issue it, I think we just have to have a definitive answer on what we're going to require, so if they hand it off to the new owner, they come back with what we ask for. Now the homeowner can say, how much is this gonna cost? Where do we put the money in?
And it
So-
happens in escrow, so they know what's happening during that time.
Exactly.
And also, if for some reason, we say how many plants, we say how many square footage.
That's right.
If that isn't done within the next growing season and I do a site visit and it's still not fixed, then it's, can go the violation route if we have to.
I'm comfortable with that.
I can just make note of it on our violation spreadsheet to continue to follow up as the season
And can
goes
we
on.
make those conditions based upon the original, what was originally approved?
Yeah, I can look at the old order of conditions and just literally quote was approved.
And then because it was
on this.
violation, we can do like maybe a 2-to-1 or something on.
Whatever you wanna condition it for.
Would you be looking for removal of things or just plantings for the?
It would be, I think, replacement of lawn area with plantings. And then, the shed can be a shed with an admin review attached to it, or you can take the square footage of the shed and add that many square footage plants.
There you go.
Whatever you wanna do.
I like that. Take the existing lawn and make the mitigation plantings there.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think there's some lawn over here to the left side that's in the 50-foot buffer that feels like could be easily taken up.
a lawn on this plan? Is there an edge of lawn? Or on the
On
first
the
plan?
old one, no, because it was totally a vegetated site. It was like this is a new build.
So so any of the new edge of lawn is
It's
all
new.
All new.
All new.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So that means that we don't need a 2-to-1, we need them to a 1-to-1 of the existing lawn, as long as that was vegetated. But the deck is also bigger than what it was supposed to be.
I'm gonna grab my phone, I can zoom in on the plan a little bit better.
So we basically want it to be exactly what it was supposed to be.
It's just
hard to
understand.
It's hard to tell on plans what was
I know.
vegetated at a vacant site versus, now.
You think
But,
this was all heavily
I
vegetated?
think having a vegetated
Yeah,
buffer
okay.
strip
It was, I looked
where
at aerial.
fences
I
could be
can't
a
see
good
the-
compromise
Yeah,
between the
area.
two versus
Like
making the
in
people
the
lawn
Nat
over.
Geo.
And I'm just wondering again, from an impact standpoint, if this were to be looked at, as if it hadn't been done yet, how is it impacting the wetlands from a mitigation standpoint? Like, is the whole thing gonna be, back to the initial plan? Or, if you don't think, because there is the railroad that runs through, and if the drainage hasn't been an issue, and just from your site visit, if it didn't look as egregious as it feels,
It's hard to
maybe
tell
that
with
might-
it being the dry season right now. You can definitely see where the water is and where it would be, because it's a very steep gradient from essentially behind the shed, and I walked the length of the fence all the way around the yard. It kind of, it goes from super steep to not as steep towards the right side of the property near the railroad tracks. Impact is impact. We don't have levels of impact. To me, visually, some things could look worse than others depending on the resource area. Barrier beaches and things are more fragile than BVWs in my opinion, but the Wetlands Protection Act lists them all as resource area, so. And I think a lot of the railroad track things are exempt because they're providing service to the public and that whole thing, but if the whole place was a vegetated lot and it was completely new rebuild, and I don't know for certain if lawn area was included in that original order of conditions, if it was just house deck and you looked out over your BVW. So,
It looked like it was an undeveloped lot.
It's an undeveloped
Okay.
lot. It was fully undeveloped. There was
We don't know if we approved
vegetation.
So the plan of record shows no lawn,
okay,
and then in the 50-foot buffer, so 0 to 50 predominantly.
so this was in 2015. And what I've done in the past is look back on the Google historical to see when the lawns appear or when, a
It
cutting
appears with the house, we don't have 15 on the map geo,
Okay.
but in 2019, the house is newly constructed and there's no, it's soil around it. And then, over COVID, over COVID, it became completed.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when it happened, somewhere in 2020 to 2021.
We have the Conservation Commission at the time may have approved the lawn, like we don't know that.
The plan of record doesn't show any proposed law.
If it's a plan of record that's stamped and there's no proposed lawn, I mean, that should be on the plan of record at that time. I
Don't
can't,
we have that here, like, don't we? know
this is
that?
the one from 2015. I don't have the one that's stamped by the commission in front of me.
There was a revised one in 2016 that the amended one had. I have it on my phone. I don't know how to get it up on there.
Is it an Apple?
Mm-hmm.
If you go to screen mirroring, so like swipe down on the left corner, there's usually a screen mirroring or casting, and you can select the AM 3100.
Oh, there it is.
And then it might take a sec for it to react.
It's kind of neat.
Where sandwich taxes go.
So you're saying it was approved, the lawn?
I'm looking on the plan now to see if there is, but, and I know you had mentioned the deck, and the 2016 plan looks like the deck, is the same. Because I think when they submitted it, BSS submitted it, it had the 2015 plan and not the 2016, which is what the amended one. So,
That
yeah,
makes
so I'll
sense.
pull that up and maybe that might help. It's taking a minute.
Yeah, I know this thing is a little finicky, so if it, usually like what, the last applicant had,
Doesn't get warm.
code would come up that you'd have to
Heat in my house
have on either screen.
finally fixed it today. It's nice and warm.
I wonder if you can do it under your Bluetooth settings. And see if you can like connect to television. I mean, moving forward, there's a few options there. Ultimately is what you guys are comfortable with.
What's the password for the Wi-Fi here?
Do we?
I think it is, yeah.
Word, I think.
Capital D.
I think.
Try it. Okay. Let's try now. Maybe that'll work. Look on the plan, and maybe I can pass it around.
It's 16 Dewey, capital Dewey, and then Ave, capital A.
Thank you.
Yeah.
16 Dewey, capital D.
Yep. Dewey. All one word, Ave with A capital.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Maybe I can hook it up. Thank you for that password. All right, so let's see. All right, so here is the plan from 2016. So there's the deck. And I can zoom in, there's your line of work.
Yeah, and I think what we're looking at here on your submitted plan with the as-built for the COC, that line of work is where everything's supposed to have ended, and then this lawn is now off the side of the house on the outside of the limit of work. And extends further up on the property into, towards the BPW, as it's flagged here.
So would we request that all the lawn, or would it just be anything outside of the limit of work be restored?
I can do either, whatever you're
I think
comfortable
if
with.
this were a new application, we would probably allow them some lawn. We would, we would just
Typically, yeah.
like have some kind of, some kind of mitigation for that particular disturbance.
Yeah, they can, so we would, they have the ability to come back and discuss it with us, but I think our wording should be, any disturbance should be rectified at a 1-to-1, but they can come back with a new application, should they wish to keep their patio in that lawn area, they can mitigate in a different area. But I think it is important for us to now say, this is what we want, so they can get the COC, and then when they come back, we are able to issue that.
They can either do what we want now.
Yep.
Or if they
Come back
have
for it.
suggestions or concerns or questions, they can come back under other business, and then we can advise them on
Yeah.
what to file there. Otherwise, if they do neither, then it can go to enforcement.
Yeah.
If
You
we have to.
explain that just again, so.
So we were saying if we do issue a certificate of compliance, it would be based on we would be requesting that anything that was disturbed outside of what was previously approved be mitigated or restored back to what it was. So what we're observing is that all this lawn area, anything outside of that limit of work was disturbed. So we would be able to issue the COC, therefore the permit would be closed. But we now you're under the microscope of conservation saying the new applicant is now responsible for rectifying any violation.
So question on that, so say that the violations are kind of separate from the COC.
I'm sorry, I was watching this on TV and I could not stay home, okay?
This is Mary Lavoy, this is.
I'm the owner of the house, okay? You have no idea what I have gone through.
Mary, we're working through this, we're working through this.
Nothing was done intentional.
Nope, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
That's not how this
Mary,
works.
we're
Just hang out.
working through it. So just to understand, so with the mitigation, with the lawn, the patio, and the steps, from what I understand with Jenna, there's different levels of permitting, right? So there's, your, what's it called, your administrative review, which we had talked about, and then there is the request for determination of applicability, and then notice of intent, as I understand it. So with these items, where would they fall into those buckets, so that I would know how to address those?
After effect notice.
They don't fall into those.
They kind of fall outside of the bucket at the moment.
They
So
fall outside the
the
bucket, okay.
admin review, we could issue an admin review permit for the shed as it stands. And as we're discussing this, we could issue an admin review permit for the plantings. I mean, people do vegetative maintenance and management under an admin review permit, like vista pruning or removal of dead things in addition to live things, things like that, if we wanted. So that's one option, admin review permit for both, or we can do an admin review permit for the shed, issue the COC with a restoration order for the new owner, and have them follow up with a 1-to-1 of lawn area, or, how we just discussed that progression. So with this, we'd issue the CO, if you want to, issue the COC, have that, done so the sale can go through and everything, and then have the new owners be responsible for restoring the lawn area. And then if they have other ideas or want to restore it differently than what Tyler's suggesting, they'd have to come before the commission, and they could come before the commission with a consultant and, have an NOI or something if they wanted to, or they could come before the commission and see how we would direct them for the next steps if they wanted to do something different with their landscaping. That's how I'm understanding this. Is that correct?
Based on what Jenna just said, what does the board feel comfortable with of those options?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that if we issue the COC, it allows everything to happen.
Yep.
Now, at worst case, if nothing happens with the new homeowners, Jenna is able to issue an enforcement and say, this is what was discussed at this meeting, and then it gets handled that way. But now we give them the opportunity to proceed, and as long as they do everything they're supposed to, then it gets closed out.
If I may, the buyer would have to agree with all of this. So just because the COC, if it does get issued, does not necessarily mean the sale would proceed. If the lawn area is changed, significantly, or certain areas need to be mitigated in a manner that might change what the bargain was for, it is possible. And I know that that's not necessarily the point, but just so that that's clear for the record, that a COC doesn't necessarily solve the sale. So just kind of noting, whatever that's worth.
I'm happy to be the go-between and answer questions for the new sellers or the buyers, what what this means and what this can look like, and, you know, there are options there if they need additional clarification. I'm happy to help, you know, facilitate that, because I know obviously with things on TV, everything can kind of, you know, get confused.
And it's good that it's not in one of those three buckets that you
Yeah,
mentioned.
yeah.
It's good that we're at this stage. This is actually where you want to be. This is much preferable to before, okay?
Yeah, we're trying to work with you guys versus saying, nope, you don't get your COC,
Yeah,
it's a
because it would have
violation.
never gone
Right,
through before.
right, and I understand that, and I do appreciate that.
Okay,
I wanted just to kind of note.
Yes, I get what you're saying.
Yes.
But we're being very flexible. And I
Yes,
think
you are.
that, I think we need to wrap this up and put this down on paper, so decide that that's what we want to do, right?
Okay, so
I
we're
think
doing-
an admin review on the shed is fine, COC on the restoration.
Can I just say
We'll
something?
deal with that.
No, I'm sorry, public comments closed. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna review on the shed.
Even though she's the homeowner?
No,
Yeah,
public comments closed.
okay, when that's closed, that stays closed. Okay, so we're gonna do the COC admin review on the shed, and then, restoration letter. Okay. And I'll word it similar to how we did it for George's Rock, based on the original conditions, if that's comfortable.
Okay,
That's
that sounds
amenable.
good.
That sounds good. Okay. So do we need?
Yeah, you need a motion and a vote to close this out. Sorry.
Come on, Jeremy, you can do it.
So is it a motion to approve an issue? Do I need to say anything about the admin review or any of that stuff, or just as
As
discussed?
discussed, is fine, yeah.
So motion to approve and issue certificate of compliance for DEP file number SE 1676 amend 1 John Lavoie, care of Environmental Consulting and Restoration LLC, 47 and 49 Atkins Road, Sandwich, Mass. 02563, with standard and discussed conditions, special, standard, and special conditions, as discussed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you.
And then that is it. Adjournment is the next portion on this.
Well, you did all the rest of them. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Motion to adjourn,
Second.
unless is there any other comment, like
I second.
correspondence?
I would like to say Dave is leaving, and I didn't know that until I read an article.
Yeah.
Are we is Sandwich looking for active replacement, or already has one?
Oh.
Yeah, so hopefully
leaving?
She's gonna keep us.
Dave is retiring. Dave DeConto?
As of this week,
Concho?
right?
Yeah, Friday.
Having a party
I'm
for him
sorry,
on the
who seconded the
Well, I
adjournment?
don't,
Thank you,
oh, yeah.
Dave.
Sorry about
At
that. I don't know.
7:54, okay. Yeah, so Dave,
Oh, so you're gonna replace it?
in a perfect world, I've applied, so as town government goes, we'll see what happens.
You need a referral letter?
Thank you. The application period's closed, so we'll see. And we're still looking for an admin, so I'll be doing all three until we get some help.
You'll be
bear
doing
with
it
me.
all, geez.
Understaffed, can you, is that the?
Me and Michelle.
I feel, I know, maybe next one we can have a motion of thanks for Dave's service.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're having a party for him at the, right?
Yeah, at Town Hall tomorrow morning.
Town Hall tomorrow morning.
Oh, they are?
They're having like a coffee hour type thing, so you
I
can
wanna
come and hang
go.
out with Dave.
What time?
I knew at one point. Yeah, something, I would say if you aim for 10, you're probably gonna get there somewhere.
Take out some school. I was talking to his daughter on Saturday, and I was like, "How's your dad doing?" She's like, "He's retiring this week." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
No one tell me.
Yeah, I read the article.
Jenna, I got these signed things.
Thank you. I can get them, you just do that.
That was definitely interesting
Stuff
too.
situated.